Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Sunday Talks with Kellie and Lisa. I'm Kellie Fitzgerald. Lisa is also here, and we're back. You know, we had a show, apparently a very popular show, more popular than we realized, several years ago, and we've been called back on air. You know, life happens. Things happen. We have catalysts that completely disrupt everything in our lives, and that's kind of what we've been through. So, welcome to the show. Hopefully this show resonates with you as much as our last one did. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Kellie. We're back. I am so excited about this show. Oh, my God. Good morning. Good morning.
About what happened to bring us to this point. Several weeks ago, after years of me, well, both of us, being lost completely, you know, it was sort of like the world erupted and derailed everything we were doing. And a couple of weeks ago, I asked for a sign from God. And I got signs. Boy, did I get signs every day for a week. And finally, okay, fine, I understand. We're doing this. So this first show back, we're talking about moving forward, you know, forgiving things that happened in the past. I know we're going to get off topic. We always have. But that's where we're starting. So forgiveness. What do you think, Lisa?
Oh, that's a tough one. You know, and it's you see people posting on social media all the time. Forgiveness isn't for them; it's for you, and it is. It's releasing the ties, cutting those cords that keep you in a place that doesn't serve your higher purpose. Because when you hold on to all of those things, you have that bitterness, you have that animosity. I personally like being happy, and to walk around with that deep-seated feeling of hate and regret and all of the things that come along with not letting something go, the what ifs. My boyfriend loves to say, don't should on yourself. And, you know, I should have done this, or what if I had done this differently? That all comes with forgiveness. It's not just a word that you give to somebody. There's a whole lot of underlying stuff that goes along with that. So for me, forgiveness is very complicated. It's a very easy thing to do, very complicated process to get there.
I think when people talk about forgiveness, and I know I have been guilty of this myself, it seems to be, at least for me, easier for me to say, I forgive someone else for a situation or something that happened than to forgive myself. And I think,
definitely.
You know, no matter what happened or what you've been through or who did what to whom when, you know, it really, I think forgiveness for ourselves is where we need to start. And so often that's the part we leave out. And then we wonder why we keep replaying things over and over and over in our heads. And it's because we haven't forgiven ourselves. You know, I am an empath, and I internalize everything. And I can feel people that I love, my friends, my family, I feel them when something isn't right. And I have been internalizing not only my own feelings, but those of other people as well. And at least for me, it makes it really difficult to truly let go and move forward because I take on every guilt. You know, if someone makes a mistake, and I suffer for it, saying, well, this person made a mistake. I say, what did I do to cause their mistake? And I'm not alone in that. I know many, many people, if not most of us, do that same thing. Unless you're a, narcissist, and then you don't. But most people, especially those who have been on a spiritual journey, do internalize those things and they try to make everything their fault. And I think that goes back to, we can't forgive ourselves because we don't believe we're worthy of forgiveness. And, we have talked about that kind of stuff, so many times in the past. And it's that, we keep circling back. And it's not only us, it's, the world is circling around right now. And, forgiveness is huge. And at least for me, I go down a vicious cycle of, well, I should forgive myself for not feeling like I'm worthy of forgiveness. Well, where does that come? Well, that's because I'm not worthy of feeling like I can forgive myself, because I feel like I'm not worthy of forgiveness. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And when I was doing a lot of coaching, I heard similar stories from a lot of people where they just didn't feel like they were able to forgive themselves. So
you mentioned another word too, guilt. I think a lot of it also comes from feeling guilty that we feel okay for hurting somebody or for being the cause of somebody's pain, and that we're not supposed to, move on. I'm supposed to still feel guilty for something that happened 15 years ago, or, that there's something not right with feeling good and being okay with what happened in the past and focusing on the present to, move forward and have a better future. And I think that has a lot to do with it as well, that vicious cycle of not feeling worthy, because I know the way that I was raised was we were supposed to be kind to and loving to everybody, but we're all human and we make mistakes, and so things happen. Sometimes it's hard to, and I really hate this phrase, to let it go when you're the cause of something that's affecting somebody else. And I feel that we don't really have those mechanisms to say, or we do have the mechanisms to say, but then we don't want to seem cold-hearted or ugly or whatever, when, well, really in all actuality, I'm not the ownership of their feelings. They are.
Right.
And if they can't let it go, that's on them, not me. So there is this whole dynamic of where do we let our part of the process dissolve? And where is it, how long do we hold on to that before it's okay that we no longer feel guilty or hold on to something that happened?
Right.
And that comes back to forgiving yourself. Seems weird, to forgive ourselves for our part. We should be seeking forgiveness from others, right? But I think that's something that is twisted in society as well. But, that whole, how do you bring all of that together? The cycle of I'm not worthy, but it's never cut and dry, right? Like, you can be okay with it, and then something will trigger you in 5 days and you'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that to that person so long ago.
Right.
Shadow work.
And and there's a lot of shadow work that people don't do. I think a lot of people honestly do not understand what we mean when we talk about doing shadow work. And, maybe that's something that those of us who are teaching spirituality need to do a better job of, because you really have to, go there. If something, and we all feel it, we might try to ignore it, but we feel that lump in our chest or in our stomach or wherever it manifests, and we know when we're not addressing an issue. And a lot of times people get very angry because they don't want to go there. And they start blaming everyone for everything. And eventually that's going to manifest in health issues. I know several people right now who are just consumed with anger and hostility and vindictiveness. And none of those things are healthy. We all feel those things from time to time. But when you're really feeling, and there have been a couple of times I went through a very ugly divorce, and he'd been cheating for many years. And I was just really internalizing a lot. And because I wasn't able, he wasn't willing to listen to what I had to say, I just internalized everything. And it festered until one day Mount St. Kellie's erupted. And it was ugly. It was very, very ugly. And I was very ashamed of myself. And when I sat down and looked at that, I realized I hadn't addressed what I was feeling. So when we talk about shadow work, we're talking about going into those very, very, very uncomfortable parts of yourself. You know, we aren't taught how to do that in this country. In other countries, that's discussed, but not here. So what happens is a whole bunch of people grow up just stuffing down hurt and pain and anger and all of those feelings that we have every right to feel, but we need to learn how to heal them. We need to learn how to love those pieces of ourselves. And that is really something that should be taught. Fortunately, there are a number of people who are teaching people how to deal with those emotions. And I don't like the term negative emotions because I honestly don't feel that any emotion we feel is in and of itself negative. It all depends on what we do with those emotions.
Yes.
And as someone who has been to the very brink several times in the last 5 or 6 years, you know, that was really a huge thing for me. And one of those things that happened, I've heard it from coaching clients, and I didn't understand what they were talking about until I went through it myself. When you start unpacking, when you start unpacking how you're feeling and why you are feeling that, it's layers. It's like an onion. You peel back layer after layer after layer. And a lot of times that means you are walking into pain after pain after pain that you've stuffed down and not dealt with earlier in your life. And I really think that's why there is so much hate and divisiveness and just bitterness in the world today. I think it's a whole bunch of people, generations of people who were taught it was better to stuff down your feelings rather than feel them. And truly, you do need to feel them to heal them. So what do you think about that? I know that was a lot.
I think it sucks. It hurts so bad. It is a beautiful, ugly, messy, painful, absolutely wonderful experience when you allow yourself to feel all of those feels, when you pull back those layers and discover, oh, I didn't realize this. And then you peel another layer back and you realize why you are doing these actions or putting up these walls. I think you hit the nail on the head, in particularly in this country. As you were talking, all of these phrases that I heard when I was a child. Don't cry, I'll give you something to cry about.
Yes.
Boys aren't supposed to cry. Children are supposed to be seen and not heard. I'm rubber, you're glue. All of these, they like you, and that's why they're acting that way. They pull your hair because they like you. They tease you because they like you. This is something that goes generation from generation to generation. It's something that has been just ingrained in us from even before we were born, and it gets passed down, and we are the ones that are responsible for breaking the cycle with our own kids and stopping that. But I think that's a different show. But when you start to look at those layers, I prefer to use the lotus bloom as instead of an onion. You're peeling it because you're blossoming like a flower. When you start to peel those layers back and you're really getting to the real root of some of the things that you're feeling, and that shadow work is hard. It's tough. It can do things to you that make you feel you're incapacitated, right? That you're just not worthy and that you just can't go on. And then you come on the other side of that, and then there's another layer, and it's like, how much longer do I have to keep doing this? But every time you peel back a layer, it gives you, I don't even know what it gives you. I can't put words on what it gives you other than to say that the next time that you face something, it's easier to face it when you've already dealt with the reasons why you might. For example, if your significant other forgets to check in with you because they've been gone all day and they decided to go shopping or hang out with a friend or whatever, and they finally get in touch with you, when you've done the work, the old you might have been reactive and jealous and insecure and, trust issues and whatnot, and you might have reacted a different way than the new you once you start peeling back those layers. And the new you might be like, hey, I understand. Abandonment might not be such a fear for you at that point because you've learned how to fill in the gaps where somebody else should, or you've become a little bit stronger and able to maintain a little bit more and not be so codependent on somebody else. So that's just a rough example, but for me it was really sitting down with my child and putting a face to my emotions, not necessarily a real face or a face of somebody who may have been like the first encounter of a certain situation, but giving my emotions a form so that when they come up, like if anger comes up, for me, my anger is this beautiful red and orange dragon that just breathes some vicious fire and huge and just beautiful, but huge, and it's just this gigantic, gorgeous dragon that sits next to me. And sometimes I get on my dragon and take a ride. I don't know. I'm allowed to do that. It's my imagination, right? So, but it sits with me, and it has a form, and we sit there together, and it allows me to process my anger more, other than just saying, God, I'm angry. I can give it form. It's no longer a void. It's a form, and my inner child is there with me too, because I feel that we need to heal our inner children. We need to heal that inner child. And when we have these experiences, things from our past come up, and like you said, Confessor and Mount St. Kellie's or Mount St. Lisa or whoever happens, and that inner child is always there. And when we address the inner child, it makes it easier to let go and to breathe again and to continue on our journey and not hold on to things for so long. I feel like I did a lot of rambling there.
No, but you're absolutely right. And, again, that's something that we need to do a better job in this country of teaching our children. And yet, and when you were talking, I was, it's interesting, my grandson and you have the same anger dragon. It's interesting how younger kids today seem to just automatically understand things that older generations did not. And, I've talked to several kids. I teach spirituality for young people, like teenagers and younger. And I hear it time and time again when they're drumming. All of a sudden, somebody will go, ah, and I'm like, well, where did that come from? And, this young girl said, I don't know, I just felt like screaming. It made me feel better. Okay, we are doing scream therapy now. And it's just so, it gives me such hope for the future that there are so many young people who are just automatically, naturally in touch with their feelings. And I think what has happened is their parents have maybe done a lot of work and realized that stuffing your emotions down is not the thing to do. At least with some of the people. Now, I teach spirituality, so if a parent is going to bring their child to a coach for young people's spirituality, it kind of tells you that the kid might be more in touch with their emotions than other kids. So I don't know if it's like I'm in touch with, but it's encouraging to me. Inner child, you mentioned inner child, and I don't understand why we were never told we all have an inner child. When I was going through some really deep, dark stuff a couple of years ago, and in all honesty and full disclosure, I was suicidal. I had a vision in a meditation. I started meditating again. I forced myself to because I was in such a dark place. And literally in a meditation, I had a vision of my inner child slapping me, saying, listen to what I have to say. And I hadn't realized, I started my spiritual journey in the early 80s. So for it to be, 2015, 2017, somewhere in that time frame, I guess it was 2017, and have my inner child, have that vision, I realized I had completely lost touch with who I am, completely lost my authenticity somewhere around 2016, 2017, 2018. I mean, really and truly, I was in a hell of my own making during those years. And instead of realizing that everything does happen for a reason, and instead of trying to find a perspective of what was going on that was at least hopeful, if not positive in nature, I chose to wallow in my despair and negativity. And I was in a very, very dark, and maybe on another show I'll give you some of the details. But that was my wake-up call, having that vision of my inner child literally slapping me. Like, hello, are you in there? And don't get to that point, people. Don't do that.
Right.
Stop yourself before then. But understand that if you do go into a very dark place, it's never too late to come back out of it and rediscover yourself. And honestly, the person I am now is not the same person I was before everything happened. And I think sometimes that's really scary for people. It was for me. When you're going through something and you realize things will never be the same, it's scary. And you just have to trust that you'll be okay, and trust that it's okay to feel those dark emotions. It's okay to sit in the dark for a little while, but don't unpack and live there. And I came very, very, very close to doing that myself with all of my training and all of my therapy and all of my therapeutic experiences. And I realized if something could hurt my soul that much, then people who have never had my experiences or my training or my, being brought up believing in celestial beings and the universe and all of these things that I believe. Maybe that's where we've gone wrong as a society. How many prescriptions for medications for anxiety and depression and all of these things are written every year? I think a lot of it is because people have found themselves in a really dark place and they aren't quite sure how to move forward. They don't know how to put one foot in front of the other. But maybe instead of medicating society, we need to do a better job of listening and realizing when people aren't right. I know many friends realized I wasn't doing okay, but nobody reached out. It wasn't until I started coming out of what I was going through that people said, oh, hey, you're doing better now. Great. You know, when we know someone is hurting, even if we don't realize how badly they're hurting, reach out. You know, don't let people you care about suffer in silence. That's not the right thing to do. It's just not. And healing of any kind is a spiral. And I think what gets a lot of people off the spiritual path and off a journey of self-growth and self-discovery is that they think they're doing really well and they think they've healed and they think they're doing really, you know, they've moved forward and they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing. And then one day something triggers them and they go right back to square one and they get discouraged and then they think it'll never get better. It will get better, I promise. I know people who have been through horrific things. You know, we just passed the September 11th, 20th anniversary. Believe me, I know. People have suffered some horribly traumatic things. But even if you're one of those people who's had a relatively good, safe life, and something has happened that's derailed you, don't think you don't deserve the same kind of healing and compassion as someone who has been through hell and death. How many times have you heard, well, it could be worse?
Oh.
You know, we say things not realizing what we're telling people. And everyone is entitled to how they feel. And the key is, no matter what you're feeling, it's your feeling. You are entitled to feel how you feel. But that does not give you an excuse to torture people around you because you were in a bad mood. See that a lot. And I know you've probably seen that a lot too.
Oh, definitely. You know, you touched on an interesting point. It could be worse, and I see a small movement of people who are a little bit more woke, trying to tell others to stop downplaying what you're feeling or stop using phrases like that towards people who do have something going on in their life, because it's not a competition to see who has the worst experience. And as you said,
right,
you are allowed your feelings and your emotions. You need to be a little wiser with how you use those emotions to propel yourself forward, or the environment that you're creating for others around you, but they're still yours, and you're allowed to be completely heartbroken after breaking up with somebody over a year as somebody who may have been married for 50 years and lost somebody. You know, there's no competition. There's no one can say whose pain is worse than others. And to downplay your own emotions is going back to the beginning of our conversation, where that's shoving it down. It's putting it away, and it's not putting it away in a healthy way. It's just shoving it down, and it's one thing of, compounding. It's the compound effect. One thing is piling on top of another is piling on top of another, because you're being told that your emotions aren't worthy enough to be what they are for whatever experience it is that you're going through. And that's crap. That's absolute nonsense. Don't bury them. And don't let others make you feel guilty or inadequate or not worthy enough, because they don't know how to handle a situation as far as like a supportive person or sympathetic person, and they don't know what to say to you or how to handle it.
Right. So many people, especially men, kind of shut down when things happen. I know my ex did. He would just shut down completely and not be willing to talk about anything. And I could see him getting angrier and angrier and angrier with just life in general. And really, it was hard for me to watch someone I cared about going through that. But again, you can't force someone to deal with their feelings. And so often, because of how we've been taught in this country, people don't know how to deal with their feelings, or they don't think they have to. And that's something when we're talking about looking at our own feelings and our own triggers and how to love ourselves and forgive ourselves so that we can move forward. We need to also be mindful that just because we're growing and we're addressing issues doesn't mean we have the right to try and make someone else do the same.
Right.
I have seen that a lot recently, too. Things on Facebook where, some of the comments, well, you need to look at your issues, you need to look at you're being jerk, blah, blah, blah. And you can't, that's not helpful. It's really not helpful. And it wasn't comments for something I posted. It was a friend's post. But still, it was very, very hurtful to that person to have people and tell them how they were wrong for not looking at something a certain way. So that's something to be mindful about. And I know way back when I started my spiritual journey, I was that person. It's like we had a joke when I was a counselor that, first-year psychology students think they have the world fixed. And that's kind of the same thing with people starting on a spiritual path. When we each start our own journey and start doing the inner work, doing the shadow work, whatever you want to call it, and when we start being mindful in our own lives, for some reason, our egos think that makes us able to tell everybody else how they're supposed to conduct themselves. That's not right. Everyone is on their own journey. When I was dealing with something a couple of years ago, a very, very, very hateful, hostile individual, and I could see all the mistakes, and I could see how they were sabotaging themselves. And in spite of what I was going through myself, I was in a very dark place then, I still felt the need to tell them how they were making all these mistakes. And I caught myself, but not before I said things I shouldn't have said. And, it's just something to be mindful about. When we're talking about love, we have to realize that true love, is unconditional. And we need to realize that unconditional love means accepting things, accepting ourselves are. Not how we want them to be, not how we think they can be, how they are. And once you've accepted someone else how they are, you set them free. They're not energy. Energy is everything. And our feelings about other people do affect them. I firmly believe that. So when we accept people as they are and we stop judging and we stop thinking we know better how to live their lives, We set them free so that they can grow and they can be who they were supposed to be. I don't know how I got on that topic, but it's important.
I think that wraps up with forgiveness and,
right.
you know, forgiving yourself too. And we are on our own journey. We're not on everybody else's journey. They're just there with
right. us
along the way. And part of, I know we've talked about this several times in the past, part of the law of allowing and manifesting your best life is the law of allowing. And it's allowing people to be who they are, where they are right now in this space, you know, this time and space and time continuum, right? We allow them to be who they are. That doesn't mean that we have to have them in our life, you know, side by side as a ride or die, or even as a friend. We can still allow them to be who they are from a distance, but that's part of the whole universal law. And, you know, when you can really accept somebody for who they are, you free yourself too. When you go in with no expectations, you free yourself as well. And I know, so I'm in a new relationship. I left San Antonio when we were doing our show. I was in San Antonio, Texas. And in 2019, I moved to Dallas, Texas. I was not with the guy, my fiance at the time. I moved here by myself. It was my son and I. Moved to Dallas, Texas. Didn't know anybody. Didn't have any family. I left everything that I knew for an opportunity. I didn't know what the opportunity was, but I did have a job that transferred me here, but it just kind of happened. I just kind of did it. I accepted the position, didn't think twice about it. There was no pros and cons list. It was, yes, I'll take it. Anybody coming with me to Dallas? No? Okay, you're staying here. Fine, I'm going. And so that's why I'm in Dallas now. Well, I did start seeing a guy, my boyfriend. Love him to death. He's awesome. I gave myself time to heal. Every once in a while, I still get triggered from the 8-year relationship that I was in, but sometimes I'll get triggered from, like, the first boyfriend in high school as well. You know, like, sometimes triggers come up. But I told myself going into this relationship that I was going to accept him for who he was. I was going to allow him to be who he was. I wasn't going to try to change him. I wasn't going to allow him to change me either. I am who I am. You got who I was almost from the very beginning of all of this. I haven't really changed a whole lot. He hasn't really changed a whole lot. We've grown spiritually. We have grown together and even separate. But those hardcore things about ourselves are still kind of there, you know, but we do see them. We confront them. One beautiful thing about this relationship is he does his own work as well. He sees things and he works on them. He meditates on them. All of the things that are amazing in a relationship, he brings to me, to this relationship. And I would like to think that I do the same for him. So I don't know where I was going with this. I really have no idea where I was going with this. So, you know, that's how I'm in Dallas, and I'm in this beautiful relationship. That's what it was. So because we both remind each other about the not just law of allowance, or not law of allowance, law of attraction, but there is this other part of the universal laws, the law of allowing. It's been one of the best relationships I've ever had.
Yay.
And I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. It's awesome that we both do our own work. That's so refreshing. When he sees something, and he will contemplate, you know, he will reflect on something that triggered him, and he knows that I do the same, and we can talk about it. We can have long conversations about our own journeys and about things that happened in our past. And, you know, we've let go of the shame, and it's beautiful. But a lot of people don't allow, they go in with expectations. And I'm not saying drop the bar. I'm not saying lower your bar, you know, as far as certain things go. But everybody has their own journey. Everybody has those things that, hurt them from their past. Not everybody has been able to work through them all and, that type of stuff. But, yeah, I got nothing else. I totally just blanked out.
It's any relationship where you can talk about your triggers is beautiful. I honestly think every relationship is beautiful in one way or another, even those toxic ones. Yeah. If we learn something from them and am able to get forward and incorporate those lessons, it's still a beautiful thing. Since my divorce, we were together 23 years, I've talked to a lot of women who were divorced midlife and later, and it seems like we all have very similar things that happened in our relationship. And it is so interesting to me that so many women were in relationships with men who could not communicate.
Yep.
And communication is so key in any relationship, whether it's at work or with your family or a romantic relationship. Communication is key. And I think really being a good communicator circles right back to self-love. Because if you don't have the confidence in yourself, and if you don't love yourself enough to realize you do have something to say, all of us do, then you're not going to be a good communicator. It takes confidence, and confidence comes from self-love and from realizing no matter where you are right now, if it's a good situation, if it's a bad situation, if it's move forward, It'll keep being good. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe it won't. But nothing stays the same. Life is not stagnant. Even if you think you have the same day in and day out, there are little tiny things that change along the way.
And stop looking at it as a failure. I think that's what I know. When I was growing up, I was supposed to go to college, get married, have the kids, have the 2.5 kids and the dog and the cat and the white picket fence. And there was all of these expectations, the norm, and I'm air quoting because y'all can totally see that, but the norm of what's supposed to happen for women in society, right? And that stems from we need a man to take care of us. We need a husband to take care of us. And we're supposed to have children for the husband and, all of that stuff. And that's beautiful if that fits, if that's for you and that fits for you. That's absolutely beautiful. But it's not a failure if you have to walk away from something. And I think that's something else that we, with the letting go and the internalizing and the not being able to forgive ourselves, is we look at it as a failure. And so we hold on to that, and it doesn't allow us to move forward. It doesn't allow us to heal. We're going to move forward. It doesn't allow us to heal.
Exactly. Exactly. It's life is a process. One of the things that I learned in the last several years is that life is a process and love is a choice. And people don't often look at love as being a choice. But even if it's a subconscious choice, it's still a choice. You can be in a wonderfully happy marriage, and one or the other of you make a choice that they want something different.
Yeah.
And in speaking with other women who have been divorced, in their 50s, I will be 60 next month. I know, it sounds like a big number. I wish I were afraid of it. It's not. My grandmother was still going dancing in her 60s, so, I feel like it's good. But we choose how we feel. We can choose to be, feeling hateful and vindictive, or we can choose to be loving and forgiving. And I think when you put it that way, it kind of simplifies things for people. You want to have a good day, and we have more responsibility, I think, than people think we do. There's this whole free will thing. And really, we should get into that on another show, free will versus
Absolutely.
fate. Because so many people think, well, everything is already predestined and blah, 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 blah. Well, then why do we have free will? You know, a wonderful psychic told me one time the advantage of being able to see the future is that you can change it. And I firmly believe that. But I really, we're winding down, about 10 minutes left, and I think this has been a fabulous first show back. At the risk of throwing something out there that we have not talked about, and again, this is something we need to talk about in the future. There are these things called angel numbers. Some people call them angel codes. Very, very simple. They do work if you believe they work. That's like any medicine in any hospital. If you believe you're going to be healed, you will be healed.
Right.
I want to give out the unconditional love code. This is from my good friend Linda Jolo. I always call her Jolo, but it's, Linda J. does angel codes. And these are from archangels. And the unconditional love code, the way these work, is you can write them on your arm, on your leg, in the air, whatever feels right to you. I do them 3 times a day. You can do them however often you want. In the interest of sending out love into the universe, like I said, we just went through the 20th anniversary of September 11th. I think we could all use some unconditional love. So the number for unconditional love is 56. You have to write a space. 57, another space. 893. I would like to ask everyone to write that code down. It's 56 space 57 space 893. And let's all send some love, unconditional love, to people that need it, the earth, the universe. If you would do that with me, I would really appreciate it. So,
I air wrote it.
How do you feel about this first show?
I'm so glad to be back on the air with you. This is so refreshing. I can't explain. I just, it's been way too long, but it was definitely the right time. And, part of our journey and our healing is going to come from this show. So I'm really, really excited to be back on the air with you.
Likewise, I've done many podcasts with many people through the years, and our show was always my favorite one to do because we just have such a good time, and listeners enjoy it because we
absolutely.
are just open and honest and forthcoming, and I have no secrets at this point in my life. And truly, I feel like together and in our own separate lives has really led us right back to this point. So,
it's going to be better than ever.
Yep. And, I know we have listeners who have been waiting for us to come back, and we have had people who promote podcasts asking us to come back. So thank you. I am so incredibly grateful for all of that. Been an amazing journey, and I should probably make a book out of it someday.
I think that's a great idea.
Any closing thoughts?
No, I normally don't. No, this is so new again, and I'm so thrilled to be here. And I feel like I rambled a little bit, and as we talk more of my story will come out, and I'm really glad to be here. We were talking at the beginning of the show before we actually came on air. This is something I loved doing our show in the past, but I have a different perspective on it this go around, and I'm just thrilled that there are people who listen to us that's my ego talking, but that we are giving something to the world that the world definitely needs, particularly this day and age post-COVID. It's been interesting. So
Yeah.
America's had a lot happen in the last 30 or so years, and it's just been interesting. I'm glad we're back. Thank you for reaching out, and I'm so glad we're back.
Me too. And that's what happens when you ask for a sign and you get one. Sometimes we get signs and we're like, no, I don't want to give me a different sign. But I have found in my life that when you actually pay attention to those signs, it's so much better than if you didn't. So thank you for doing the show again. And thank everybody for listening. Some time to send love to the world, to our country, to people, whether you love them or not, whether you know them or not. The world needs some love right now. And it will be a lot better place if we can all take just a few minutes every day and be grateful for everything that we have and send love to the world. Thank you guys so much for listening. I think that wraps it up for us today. We will see you next Sunday with another episode. Thanks so much. Please share the show. That's what we ask. Please share it. We're really trying to help a lot of people here. So thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.